She didn't block you. She didn't say goodbye. She just went quiet. And somehow, that silence hurt more than rejection ever could. Your mind replayed every message, every word, every moment you wondered if you mattered at all. And the hardest part? She knew you were waiting, but she didn't reach back. Then something changed. Not because you chased, not because you explained yourself, but because one simple text shifted the entire emotional balance. A message that didn't beg, didn't apologize, didn't try to prove worth. Stay until the end, because this isn't about texting. It's about self-respect, and the moment she feels it. Comment your location where you're watching from, subscribe to the channel for more powerful truths. When someone goes quiet on you, the mind rushes to the worst conclusions. You tell yourself you said the wrong thing, that you weren't enough, that interest vanished overnight. But psychologically speaking, silence is rarely a verdict. It's information. And the men who suffer the most are not the ones being ignored. They're the ones misinterpreting what that silence actually means. Silence reveals emotional positioning. It tells you where you stand in her mental world at that moment. Sometimes it means she's overwhelmed, sometimes distracted, sometimes unsure how she feels yet. What it almost never means is that you need to rush in and fix something. The human brain doesn't reward urgency. It rewards emotional stability. When you respond to silence with panic, you communicate instability. When you respond with calm, you communicate strength. Most people believe attraction is built through constant communication. In reality, attraction is built through emotional safety and self-possession. When she doesn't reply and you immediately send follow-ups, explanations, or apologies, you unintentionally signal that your emotional center is external, dependent on her response. And the moment your center shifts away from yourself, the dynamic shifts too. Silence also creates a psychological mirror. The way you respond to it reflects how you see yourself. If you chase, you're saying, I need you to validate me. If you pause, you're saying, I'm grounded whether you respond or not. That difference is felt deeply, even if it's never spoken aloud. People are drawn to those who don't collapse under uncertainty. There's a philosophical layer here as well. The need to immediately resolve discomfort is a form of emotional avoidance. Growth happens when you can sit with uncertainty without trying to control it. When you allow space, you allow reality to reveal itself. You stop forcing outcomes and start observing patterns. And patterns tell you far more than words ever could. This is why silence, when handled correctly, shifts power back into your hands. Not because you're playing games, but because you're no longer reacting, you're responding. You're choosing intention over impulse. And intention always carries weight. She feels the difference between someone who is waiting anxiously and someone who is simply living their life. The men who understand this don't rush to be understood. They let their absence speak. They let their calm create contrast. And that contrast is often what reawakens curiosity. Because when someone expects you to chase and you don't, the brain pauses. It asks questions. And attention follows questions. So the next time silence shows up, don't label it rejection. Label it feedback. Step back. Regain your center. Observe instead of reacting. Because the moment you stop letting silence control your emotions is the moment you start controlling your direction. When you finally decide to reach out after being ignored, the instinct is almost always the same. You want to explain. You want to justify. You want to bridge the silence with words that prove your worth. But here's the paradox. The words that most people think will bring connection often do the exact opposite. They communicate need, not value. They seek validation, not understanding. And in the delicate psychology of attraction, neediness repels far faster than silence ever could. The text that changes everything isn't a question. It isn't an apology. It isn't a plea. It's a statement of calm authority. It assumes value. And that assumption is magnetic because it aligns with a deeper principle of human behavior. People are drawn to those who are emotionally self-sufficient. They are drawn to certainty, not desperation. When you send a text that communicates, I exist fully, with or without your reply, you are speaking directly to a subconscious truth that most words cannot reach. This doesn't mean being arrogant or cold. It means understanding that your energy carries more weight than your words. If she has been distant, she is already curious. Curiosity is natural when someone unexpected does not conform to expectation. The right message leverages that curiosity, gently shifting the emotional narrative without force. It invites engagement rather than demanding it. And humans, by nature, respond to invitations far more readily than to commands. Philosophically, this is about presence versus pursuit. Most men live in pursuit, acting as if the world must acknowledge them to validate their existence. But presence is different. Presence is quiet confidence. Presence is knowing your own value and expressing it subtly. The text that transforms silence is an extension of that presence. It is a microcosm of self-respect condensed into a few deliberate words. It communicates, I am grounded, I am complete, I am interesting, not because I am chasing, but because I live fully. Psychologically, there is another element at play: contrast. Human brains notice shifts in patterns. When someone expects panic, explanation, or desperation, and instead receives calm, clarity, and subtle leadership, it disrupts expectation. That disruption sparks attention. That disruption reignites interest. You don't need clever lines or manipulation, you need emotional precision. The right text creates a momentary pause in the subconscious narrative she has constructed, allowing her curiosity and attraction to remerge naturally. So, when you consider what to send, remember it is not about impressing. It is about embodying. It is not about solving the silence. It is about reflecting emotional strength. The right text does not argue with her distance. It amplifies your stability. It creates the space where attraction can breathe again. The moment you master this principle, you understand something profound: connection is never forced. Influence is never demanded. The text that changes everything works because it mirrors your inner confidence. And that confidence, silent yet palpable, speaks louder than any words ever could. What triggers a response isn't always what you say, it's the energy you carry when you say it. Emotional contrast is one of the most overlooked dynamics in attraction, yet it is profoundly effective. People are wired to notice shifts, changes, and deviations from expectation. When she expects anxiety, panic, or over-explanation, and instead receives calm, confidence, or subtle intrigue, her brain pauses. That pause is where curiosity and desire are born. Most men fail because they ignore this principle. They believe that repeated effort or clever lines can manufacture attraction. In reality, attraction is never about volume. It's about emotional rhythm. When you match her energy or follow predictable patterns, you blend into the background. But when you disrupt that rhythm with intentional contrast, you create focus. That focus draws attention. It awakens awareness. It forces her to reconsider how she feels and what she notices. Contrast doesn't require manipulation. It requires presence. It requires understanding that your internal state communicates more than your words ever will. A simple shift in tone, pacing, or intention can convey independence, strength, and intrigue. When done subtly, it generates curiosity, making her want to re-engage because she senses an emotional depth she hasn't fully explored. Your calm in the face of her silence is not a game. It is a signal that your value is inherent and not conditional on her validation. Philosophically, emotional contrast aligns with a broader principle: the human mind responds most to change. Patterns become predictable, predictable becomes background noise, and background noise is ignored. When you intentionally embody emotional contrast, you interrupt expectation. You create a space for her brain to notice, reflect, and respond. That space is where attraction is reignited, not through force or persuasion, but through presence and deliberate energy. This principle reinforces everything we've discussed: silence is information, and the right text assumes value. But emotional contrast transforms those insights into action. It turns passivity into curiosity. It turns doubt into engagement. It turns what could have been finality into a beginning. The lesson is simple, yet profound: attention follows contrast, not desperation. Presence outweighs pleading. Confidence outweighs explanation. And the moment you understand how to embody emotional contrast, you no longer wait for her to act, you create conditions where she chooses to. That choice, silent yet palpable, is far more powerful than any words you could send.